What is going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning in to this special segment of MCSC, and I'm your host, Niko House. Today, I have back with me the almighty, sell out the big seltzer, Kyle Kulinski.
How's it going, Niko?
Kyle? Oh, you got Man, my supporters literally talk about every time I mention your name for whatever reason. They're like, "Oh man, don't mention Kyle, bro. He sold out the big seltzer. We don't have no." I'm like, "What the fuck are they talking about?" They said you always got the bottle with you, bro. I don't even like seltzer water. I don't even like seltzer water.
Oh, you did not just say that. You wanted to start this interview out on the wrong foot like that?
I like Brita. You ever had Aquapana? I like flat water. I like my water like
I've had Aquafina.
No, Aquapana. Unfortunately, it is by Nestle, but it's the best water. It's the best water that's ever been invented. It tastes better than juice. I swear to God, it's so good.
Really?
Yes, it's that. When I used to work at a restaurant, all the servers would steal it, and there would never be anything left for the customers. I'm telling you, it's that good.
You know what it was for us? I worked at this place called Harmon's back in the day. It's kind of like a CVS or Walgreens type store, and the one thing that we all stole was Crest White Strips.
Oh, back when it was like $50 for a pack.
Back when they were really expensive and they like first came out, and then we never stole anything else at all ever, not even a pack of gum. But everybody was like, "I'm about to steal some Crest White Strips."
Well, so if any of y'all wondering where Kyle gets his winning smile from, it's because he's a thief. Okay. Nah, but man, it's good to have you back on. I see you've been putting on a lot of work recently. And before we get into the details of the political stuff, there's a lot of that. I want to talk really quick about how do you feel about the clear measures that YouTube has been taking to silence independent journalism. I saw you tweet out about it a little bit and did a video about it. I talked about it here. How do you feel about it, man?
It's terrible. I mean, and I'm sure you know just as well as any of us, because I'm sure you're going through the same thing. In my case, it's like now it's a default demonetized video. Like as soon as it gets uploaded, immediately demonetized. And then it's like it's such a headache because what they'll do is they allow you to request a review of it, but you click request review and like best case scenario, they get back to you like 3 hours later or 4 hours later. Worst case scenario, it's 24 hours later. And as you know, the way YouTube works is you're going to get most of your views in that first 24 hours.
Literally the first 48 hours is when they tell you to share your video the most, because that's when it could still consider new.
Exactly. So yeah, it's just now that's the default. And actually they have this new feature that they just rolled out that I just got access to a few weeks ago. And it allows you to take almost like a little questionnaire about your video to almost rank your own video to say whether or not it's monetizable. And my problem is I'm too honest. So I'll put because one of the things is profanity. Like, how bad is your profanity? What level is it? Is it bad where we're going to take ads off it? Or what I always click is light profanity, which technically allows ads, but I don't think it really does, because that might be why every video of mine is default demonetized. Because for everything else, like there's like a violence section, there's a sexual content section, and for all that, I'm like, no, I'm good. But the only two where I'm like, I got to be honest with them is the profanity one, and then the other one is like controversial topics. But that's the thing, Niko, is that everything we talk about is going to be controversial because of the nature of what we're talking about. Whenever you talk about, that's the old saying is, don't talk about religion and politics. That's the old saying that like the idea is don't talk about religion, if you want to be in polite society and keep your friends and whatnot, don't talk about religion and politics. But that's what we talk about. That's what our thing is. That's what we do. So we're going to talk about war. We're going to talk about Saudi Arabia. We're going to talk about Israel. We're going to talk about, race issues. We're going to talk about the economy. We're going to talk about Wall Street. We're going to talk about all these different things that immediately, just by virtue of the fact you're talking about it, somebody's going to disagree. There's somebody out there that's immediately going to disagree with whatever you're talking about. So boom, that's controversial right there. So like basically the way that YouTube is structured now, the whole point is to say we want to try to make everything advertiser friendly and safe. So they don't want anything to do with independent news and politics. We're like the last thing on their mind.
Which is crazy to me because from what I've seen, and I've like logged into different accounts, I ask people what they see on their ads. And I mean, I get a wide array of like, people say they get Fashion Nova ads on my videos and to, Kamala Harris ads at times. But I find it interesting because this is something that I just started discovering. That they're telling me that my videos are not advertiser friendly, but then they proceed to run ads on my video after they're demonetized.
See, that is creepy because if that's true, and if they're getting money off that, then they're literally just robbing you, and that's wage theft.
Yeah, quite literally. And and at first somebody told me this about 3 months ago. I was like, I don't know if they do that. And then well, I'm sure you probably had the same issue happen where basically over the last month and a half, it's literally been maybe 1 out of 5 of my videos actually gets monetized like after it's processed. Usually it's demonetized immediately, and then I have to request a review. And they were like, basically, people are like, why am I still getting seeing ads on this video then? I'm like, what do you mean you're seeing ads on it? And they're like, well, I just got an ad for so-and-so, or I just got an ad from this company. I'm like, they told me that my video ain't suitable for advertising, so what the hell? And so that's another issue that I'm dealing with because there's a class action lawsuit building against YouTube. And there is that YouTube union that the FairTube? What do you think about the YouTube union that's
I like the idea, but we've never seriously organized on that front, so I have no idea how far along in that process people are and like how many channels are interested in it. But I mean, it's definitely a good idea.
So they have 50,000 people
I'm
for it
amazed
right
at how
now.
bad it's gotten, to be honest, because and you noticed this with the debate. Your channel got just for doing debate commentary, and for me, I was up until 4 a.m. the night of the debate, because the way I like to do it is a little different because everybody likes to do the live streaming on the debate. So in my mind, I think people already have like 6, 7 options for that. So I'm not going to jump in on that front and live stream the debate and then do commentary. What I'll do is the next day, I'll break out my favorite clips, and then I'll say, hey, here's like 7 or 8 different segments from the debate. Let's talk about, this moment or that moment. And then what happened was, even though I was up till 4 a.m. doing the work, doing the editing, so on and so forth, immediately when I upload all of it, not only was it demonetized, it was also copyrighted.
Yep. CNN they literally put anything that had the word debate in it, they copyright strike. Let me tell you something. So Pasta and Fiorella that do the show The Convo Couch from the network, they live streamed same time that I did, and they got taken down actually maybe 10 minutes into the debate. So they sent a letter out by an attorney to them saying, look, this is not violate the fair use agreement. It basically, if you're using your platform to educate or using the video to educate, and political commentary falls into that category, especially during election time when it's a debate that will decide the fate of the country, then you are not violating any copyright laws. So they submitted it. 4 days later, their video is put back up.
That same thing happened to me, but it was like 2 days later, 3 days later that they lifted the copyright and that they allowed monetization, but it was already after all the views on the video.
Exactly.
So it's almost like if we really want to think about this in the conspiratorial way, we would be like, that's the point. Like the point is to be nefarious in that way, where it's like just throw a little bit of a wrench into the process and make it so that you delay any earnings on any videos. And then it's like, we're standing there at the end and going, wow, even though I did nothing wrong at any point in this, I was totally demonetized across the board.
And not for nothing, but for people who don't understand how YouTube revenue works, basically we make most of our money in the first 48 hours of a video. When you're talking about the difference between $250, $350, in some cases $500 to $1,000 in $10 to $15, and that's not an exaggeration.
Yeah.
Across multiple videos, I do about 15 to 20 uploads a week. I think you do roughly the same, if not a little bit more, depending on what week it is. And literally thousands of dollars in revenue versus a couple of hundred. That's how much it can hurt people. And imagine if you're not doing political commentary and you don't have something to talk about every day, like we're fortunate enough to, or unfortunate enough to, depending on how you look at it. But there's always something to talk about. But there are channels out there now, because this is spilling over into other categories, where they're demonetized. Yeah.
So what about like makeup girls? Are they getting demonetized?
The makeup girls, they're not getting demonetized, but it's mostly because they don't have a lot of commentary in their videos. But like gamers are getting a lot of their content demonetized.
I'm sure they're in the same category as us. Because if you're a gamer, you're probably just casually cursing or whatever and not even realizing it.
If you have any type of music in your videos, they automatically assume that it's somebody else's. And then they review it and they figure out that it's not somebody else's, but that's 2 days later. So like it's almost like basically anything that's interesting.
Yeah, that's right. But like, why can't I don't understand, because the way it used to work, if you think about it, was almost like YouTube is just a little bit of a middleman, where it's like the advertisers will just be like, here's here's advertiser money, and just be a middleman and just put it on all these different channels. But now it feels like even if an advertiser, because I've seen this happened to TJ Kirk, the amazing atheist. You had an advertiser who was like, I would like to advertise on TJ Kirk's channel. And YouTube is like, no, we have demonetized like all of his videos.
What?
So that's what I'm saying, because what they do is they'll allow it by category. Like, oh, you want to advertise in news and politics, you want to advertise in gaming, you want to advertise in whatever, fill in the blank. Sports talk, doesn't matter. But like, so they used to do it that way, and I think they still do it that way, but like some channels just get like everything demonetized. And even if an advertiser goes to YouTube and says, let me please advertise with this person, I like this person, they literally will just be like, no, the monetization has been turned off for that channel. And it's like, well, then what's the point? Like, what role are you playing? But listen, I'm mad at everybody about this, because it's not like unfortunately people on the left have been kind of begging for this for a long time. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Something they don't like on the right, and they think like, why is YouTube monetizing this channel? It's like, well, you do realize it's a package deal, right? That the only way lefty content is going to be monetized is if you allow righty content to be monetized, even if we hate it. Like, it's a package deal. You can't separate that out and say, but this person stands for good things and this person stands for bad things. To who? To who? Exactly. To a Ted Cruz voter, I'm the most evil person on the planet. You know what I'm saying? And that's not how a lot of people view it. They view it in like a way where it's like, well, we should obviously police the content to some extent. And it's like, okay, well, then who gets to draw the line? Because as soon as you agree that there has to be a line somewhere, then obviously what's going to happen is they're going to keep moving that further and further in the wrong direction and demonetize.
It's already bad enough because we don't know what the fuck the line is right now. We literally have no idea what the line is. They gave what's his name, Steven Crowder, like they didn't take him off the platform, but they demonetized his videos for a little bit, but then gave him back. But then Alex Jones, they took him completely off the platform and never let him back on, and it seemed to be collaborative between all the social media. And then we get demonetized, and they're like, okay, well, let me try a video where I don't cuss at all. Still gets demonetized. Don't know why. So at a certain point, you have to realize I may not like Steven Crowder, I may not like Alex Jones, but what the hell? What were different about their circumstances that yielded different results? And what was the clear line that so we can make sure we don't do that? But that's not what we're seeing. And then the moment that you're okay with that type of behavior from YouTube, you can't act surprised when it happens to you, because there is more than one way to censor somebody. You stop that revenue stream, it's going to be really hard for you to keep producing videos, and you're not going to get a part-time job at McDonald's. Like, it's hard to what we do, obviously it pays the bills, but it can't pay the bills if we keep getting demonetized. That is another form of censorship.
And they were just responding to public pressure when it came to those to like Steven Crowder and Alex Jones, and it's like, you couldn't think of a worse standard than just public outrage, because that is so goddamn arbitrary. Like, CNN has accused Jimmy Dore of being like a terrible conspiracy theorist. And it's like, well, obviously if they had their way and if they put enough pressure, they could probably get YouTube to demonetize him or try to kick him off. And anybody who's really being serious about this situation knows damn well that there's a world of difference between Alex Jones and Jimmy Dore. Not even remotely close. But to some bad people out there, they'll just pretend like they're the same and try to get him kicked off. So it's a shame what's happening, that we can't just draw like very clear lines that have really clear rules and just say, this is the way it works. We're going to lean as heavily as possible on the side of letting the content creators do what they want, say what they want, and we're just going to play a role as a middleman for advertisers. Because I got news for you. There's an advertising market out there for almost everything. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, there are going to be people, like there are people who would advertise on straight up porn videos. You know?
There are a lot of people that do that. Yeah.
Exactly. So like, why is it like, whose role is it to step in the middle there and determine, like, I don't like this, I don't agree with this, I'm not going to allow this? It's like, that's nice, go do something else. What are you doing to get out of here?
Especially because most advertisers, at least it seems to me, from everything I read, they don't base the advertisement off the content necessarily of the video. They base it off of who watches your videos. So like, especially for YouTube, they base it off of specifically who is watching the video, what other videos you click on. And so if the advertisers already get to choose to a degree what content they want to advertise on, why does YouTube then step in and say, well, we're going to now choose what you're allowed to advertise on, or at least what we're going to pay? Because think about it, it's not like they say, Kyle, the advertiser's like, I want to advertise on Kyle Kulinski's videos, and I'm not giving you a dime until I see how many videos are advertised on. No, they say, here's a bunch of money. Here's what I want to be advertised. Here's what type of videos I want to be advertised on. And then YouTube keeps that money. We aren't paying anything, and they're still running ads. Even if they weren't running the ads on our channel, like YouTube still got paid for that, like they did. So I think ultimately it might create a problem for YouTube where advertisers are going to stop giving them money, because billion-dollar industries might be able to do that, or multi-billion-dollar corporations might be able to do that, but mom and pop small businesses that are just operating online, have their own little small website online, but still use YouTube to help grow that, which it used to be profitable to do so. You can't advertise like even holsters, like pistol holsters on YouTube anymore.
Didn't they like totally demonetize and maybe even take down a lot of the YouTubers who do like gun reviews?
Mm-hmm. Which I feel like is ridiculous. I think that's
that is. I mean, listen, if you change the laws and make it so that, hey, certain guns aren't allowed, well then, I understand you can't review that, because that's like, doing a YouTube ad reviewing like a specific brand of cocaine or something. Like, I get it. You don't want that. But if it's legal, then how are you going to just be like, no, it's not okay for you to do that. But like, the thing is, YouTube tried to fight back against, remember the media outcries over a bunch of different issues when it came to YouTube. Like, they were mad because like a Kraft ad or something slipped through the cracks and got on like a neo-Nazi channel or something. And so what they did is a massive overreaction to that, where they were like, okay, no, we don't want any more bad press. Stop writing bad articles. Stop saying we have a problem with YouTube where it's like a cesspool and it's nothing but bad stuff. Here, we'll just like totally start demonetizing like all of news and politics. And just please, like, don't run away from us, advertisers. And that's what it was, like a reaction. It was an overreaction.
Which no advertiser threatened to do. Like, at the time, nobody was like, it's like, but they thought that the advertisers were going to react to the news articles, but they didn't realize. And it's clear, in my humble opinion, because everybody else, like, if you go watch other videos from other like categories of YouTube, they're like super confused. They're like, what the hell is this? I don't even understand why this happened. But like, people who are in politics who watch channels grow from 10,000 subscribers to hundreds of thousands of subscribers and millions upon millions, in some cases billions of views, we know exactly what it is. They're pissed off at us. We're the ones who influence the outcome of elections now. We can influence public opinion. When the media tries to go right, we can go left. Like, and that also plays, obviously, because like Google is owned by NQTEL, which is the CIA's investment capitalist firm. Like, they don't even care. They're open about it. So like, all this stuff plays a part, right? Why would I, even for Facebook, right? If you own stock in Facebook, which I'm sure a lot of bigwigs do, they have Facebook TV. How much competition could you really be? Like, how much competition could CNN really be for us in these mediums when you're pumping out a billion views in a year? Like, there's no way in hell. They're like, we can't even get 15,000 views on a video. You can use their exact same thumbnail on your video, Kyle, and get 50,000 views in 3 or 4 hours. And they know that. And so I think it's the money issue. I think it is the mainstream as well taking issue with this, because you did a video covering it as well. It seems like where we have been dropping in viewership and subscription increases, they have been gaining ridiculously.
Okay, that's been proven. That's been proven. So now we know that the way the algorithm is functioning is to go back from borderline content, which they said they're cracking down on in their new rules and terms of service. They said they're cracking down on borderline content, and they're redirecting to authoritative content. What's the authoritative content? Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, and the nightly news like ABC.
Who are not
CBS.
Subject to the same community guidelines as we are. We just watched some pedo Russiagate down our throat, claiming literal debunked lies from articles that have actually been taken down and retracted, and they're still repeating those same lies, never receiving any type of punishment for it.
Nothing. That was the socially acceptable conspiracy theory. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like that, They viewed that as like, no, this is the good conspiracy because it's targeting the people we don't like. So this is fine, and you could do that. But it's crazy because the only reason they get a lot of views is because everything redirects to them in the algorithm. Everything, anytime you watch anything about news, a CNN video will pop up. And it's like, if you really just let it be a totally fair system, they would still be getting 10,000 views per video, and we'd be getting way more.
Yeah, and I guarantee if you go look at the average view time, it's trash. Because a lot of people, they're like, what the hell is this? I didn't click on this. And they exit out immediately. But I want to go ahead and move on. So the debates. What did you think about the first and second night of the second debates?
Yeah, I think they went pretty well. I mean, I really think, well, first we could talk about, your preferred candidate, Tulsi. She did very well in the first debate. She took Tim Ryan to school. I think she started out kind of slow, but then picked it up by the end. And she really exposed him and had probably the biggest moment of the night. And then in the second debate, I think Bernie really, brought down the house, because I'm pretty sure that behind the scenes. What's that?
Tim looked like he was about to cry by the time.
For sure. Tim
like,
Ryan.
Again?
Didn't he like semi-drop out? Like, I heard he did a thing, like he went on MSNBC after one of the mass shootings and was like, I'm suspending my presidential campaign. And I interpreted that as he's dropping out, but everybody else didn't.
I don't know how. That's the political way of saying I'm dropping. How does I'm dropping out sound? It seems like I'm a quitter. But like when you say, I'm like, Swallow suspended his campaign too. Where's Swallow?
Yeah, exactly. He's changing his baby's diaper and recording it to make another ad out of it because he's creepy.
He wants to be like, he wants to like call the millennial vote so bad. Like,
but we all hate him.
Yeah, like, bro, you look fake. You look like a fake person. He literally looks like it was put together. Like,
he wakes up in the morning and like tells his wife his talking points. He's just so on script all the time, and it's really awkward. Like, they don't understand. Basically, the opposite of everything Swalwell's doing is what we want out of a candidate. Like, just don't be Swalwell. If Swalwell said, I'm going to do the opposite of what my instinct is every time, then he would be decent.
Yeah. Well, shit, the same could be said for about 97, 98% of the other candidates. Because, or actually, no, I lied. Joe Biden needs to fucking find a script and stick to it. He needs to read directly off the script, because this is getting embarrassing.
He did it again today, right before you and I started talking. I just looked at Twitter. He said that Martin Luther King Jr. and RFK got assassinated in like the late 1970s or something. He said this in a speech in the place, I think, where they got it, or where one of them got assassinated. He said back in the 70s and the late 70s.
Oh my God. See, I'm glad he didn't say on the debate. Like, it's getting to the point. So people are asking me, well, why won't Tulsi attack Joe Biden the same way he attacked Kamala Harris? And I know you feel the same way I do. Joe Biden is not a threat to anybody in this race. He's a threat from their perspective.
A lot of people are saying that.
That he is or not? Is not
that he isn't a threat. So it's like almost like they feel bad when somebody attacks them.
Exactly, because her sister was in the room, and I asked her, like, so how do you feel about the debate and like the individual performance of the establishment? And they were like, bruh, I feel like everybody was just attacking Grandpa. Like, I felt bad. Everybody just felt bad, because it's like, bro, how can you? I can't be vicious towards somebody who literally cannot defend himself.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, though, that we need to understand, because we're a little bit biased in the circles that we run in, that older people, older Democrats, they fuck with Biden. They like Biden. They do. And again, I would argue that's what I call default support. Those are people who are maybe not too involved in politics, but they do vote in every election. And then if you ask them, hey, who you voting for? They'll be like, I don't know who's running. Oh, Biden's running. Okay, I like Biden. And like that's the thought process.
They don't even watch the debates sometimes. They don't even watch the debates. And they're not catching the highlights on social media. They're just listening to what their friends, who did well in the debates? And their friends like, Biden did pretty well, I heard. Yeah, Biden did good. The news also said Elizabeth Warren did well, so I'm assuming she did well also. Like, the night that Bernie, I didn't think that Bernie necessarily won the first debate. I think that he won in the sense that everybody had to echo his policies in order for them to seem relevant. But as far as like standing out, obviously it was Kamala, and I would even say to a degree it was Marianne Williamson. But in the second debate, it was a runaway for Bernie.
Yeah, and then you know what?
Go ahead.
They said behind the scenes, I think, Bernie, you got to get more aggressive, because that first debate, Kamala went for Biden's throat. And it worked. Yes. She nailed him. And she saw a giant boost in fundraising. And so I think that Bernie's campaign behind the scenes, they were like, listen, Bernie, not for nothing, that could be you. Like, you could have gone after Biden. You could have went for his throat on TPP, on NAFTA, on the Iraq war, on all these different things, but you didn't really do it. So now Kamala got her moment in the sun. So now you got to pick it up. And then obviously he did pick it up, and basically Tim Ryan's whole purpose is to serve as the punching bag for Tulsi and Bernie.
Yeah. We got to send him a gift basket, man.
Of course I know. I wrote the damn bill. Talking about the Medicare.
Oh my God, yeah. I don't know why he asked him that. Yeah, like you don't know what your bill is going to do in the bill that you wrote, that you've been helping to write for the last, I don't know how many years of your life. Like, Tim, do you know before you just assume that, And
by the way, he was a co-sponsor of that bill, Tim Ryan. He was, because remember when
the House version?
Yes, because we had a giant campaign, just as Democrats did, where we were like trying to force all the Democrats to get on board with Medicare for all. And what happens is when you put public pressure on people, they really do buckle when they feel like, oh my God, like this is insane. I get calls to my office every 6 seconds. I got to do something. But obviously, they're just liars. And Kamala's the same thing. Kamala said the other day she backpedaled even harder than she's been backpedaling on Medicare for all. To the point where she said, like, oh, I'm not on board with Bernie's bill. I have concerns with Bernie's bill. You signed on to Bernie's bill. What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah. The first town hall. Let me be clear. Let me be very, very clear about something. Medical or healthcare is a right. And I do support Medicare for all, blah, blah, blah. And then she backtracked the next day. And then people were like, well, we think she's for Medicare for all. And then she pretty much killed that sentiment because she got on stage and was like, I have my own bill now. I don't understand. Why do you have your own bill if you were just for Bernie's bill? Because if it's not Bernie's bill and it's not Jayapal's bill in the House, they have no idea what the hell you're introducing with a 10-year transition. And she said, literally, she said this. She said, because, they got their anecdotal talking points. And I swear to God, if I hear another anecdote on that debate stage, I almost like, bruh, I don't even feel bad for people anymore. By the end of the debate, I know this person. God damn it. Who is this person that y'all all seem to know? It's the same family that all got problems. And I get so tired of hearing about this damn family. Fix their problems. I don't know if they're representative of the rest of the country, but fix their damn problems. But she started out with her little story. And she said, diabetics don't have time to wait. And my Medicare for all plan has a 10-year transitional period. I'm like, bitch, hold up, bitch. Wait a minute. They gonna be dead. You just said that. She don't even hear it because they're like you said, they're talking points. That's all they are. And then I'm gonna realize how ridiculous they sound. And which is why I'm glad that, and that's one of the more underrated parts of the debate, where Tulsi called out Kamala and was like, hold up, what you just say? Who's writing your bill? Oh, no. That's Obamacare Part 2, guys. It's Obamacare, and nobody really caught that. And then Kamala tried to call her a liar, and I think that was part of the reason why Tulsi went off on her the way she did. Because she tried to call her a liar and then turned around and tried to ignore her right after that. I don't know if you remember that.
I do. And then after, what Kamala said after really pissed me off because she brought up, first of all, of course, what did she do? She brought up Syria. And then she had the nerve to say, like, I'm like a top tier candidate. And she's like, whatever. It's like, did you just say that out loud? Do you not understand that this is not like a thing? You can't say something like that, especially because Tulsi went through a list of stuff. And she really got her on criminal justice. I think she got her even better because she hit her with, like laughing about marijuana and locking somebody up. She may have even said the dude's name, who she like locked up and then tried to force.
Oh no! So the dude actually he created a Twitter account. It's a black dude created a Twitter account literally the next day, and he tweeted a picture of himself, and he's like, I was that black man to Kamala. Like I was like, oh shit. And it's crazy that that didn't get the traction that it should have got. I'm like, bruh, so hold on, we just gonna ignore the fact that there's evidence. They said she withheld evidence to keep a man on death row.
That's the role of the media. They have their favorites and they're pushing their favorites. And listen, that's one of the theories as to also why Joe Biden still has that lead in the polls, is because they have their candidates that they support. And the thing that annoys me is they pretend like support for Biden and support for Kamala is non-ideological. And like, what do you mean? Like, we support them because like, oh, obviously Biden is the most electable candidate. That's why we support him. And it's like, well, first of all, that's based on nothing. Like, you're basing that on absolutely nothing. Okay. Second of all, like, No, stop pretending like you're not a centrist and you're not a neoliberal. Like you are, that's what you are, and that is your philosophy. Like you would admit to your audience, listen, I'm coming from a left-wing perspective. I admit to my audience, listen, I'm coming from a left-wing perspective. This is how I see the world. They pretend like, no, 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 no. I'm just giving the facts. I'm just being objective. And oh yeah, I support Biden. I support Kamala Harris. And it's like, it's disingenuous in multiple ways. It's disingenuous because they're not being honest about their perspective. And it's disingenuous because they'll also try to twist the facts to support their candidates and try to ignore, like you were saying, the reality about what happened in that debate, where it's like, well, we know that Tulsi hit Kamala over the head with facts about her own record and about how terrible it is, stuff that really nobody can defend. And instead of acknowledging that and then discussing that and saying, hey, this was a really good moment. Hey, look, she's the most Googled candidate. Instead of doing that, they did the exact opposite, which is they try to create the world that they want while pretending they're just describing it as it is.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's exactly. Oh yeah, like with the Elizabeth Warren thing. Like, let's be honest. Elizabeth Warren basically tried her hardest to ride Bernie's coattails. And she even tried, why are we using right-wing talking points? And I was like, but Liz, you won't even say the words Medicare for all on stage. People haven't caught that yet. Certain buzzwords we all listen to as progressives, especially when you're in the media like we are, where like, in Medicare for all is one of those words. Just like I noticed they didn't ask Elizabeth Warren about foreign policy at all. That's twice in a row they didn't do that, which is by design because she's just absolutely horrendous on foreign policy. And after the debate, the post-debate, they were having their discussion, and they were like, I think that Elizabeth Warren really stood out here. I think she clearly ran away with the debates. She separated herself ideologically from the crowd. She clearly separated herself as a progressive contender, as one of the top 2 progressive candidates. And I'm like, hold on. I'm like, did everybody just see the debate that I just saw? Where it was literally Elizabeth Warren was following behind Bernie like a puppy dog. Like, what do we say next, Bernie? What do we say next? Well, because I mean, do you know one policy? What did she talk about? And everybody's like, well, she had a substantive discussion. Well, what was it about? Because I didn't hear any policies.
So I thought she did a good job because she was just punching John Delaney in the face repeatedly, which admittedly is not
from that
hard.
perspective. Yeah,
it's not
from that perspective. Yeah,
but she did go ahead. Do that. What was the line that she had? Oh, she was like,
the right-wing talking point.
Who runs for president and just talks about things we can't do and shouldn't try? That was a good haymaker that she landed on him. But yeah, I mean, I don't think she outperformed Bernie. I think that the reason why the media, maybe most of them did say she outperformed Bernie is because they want that to be the case because she's safer than him. So in the same way that they pump up Kamala and Biden, they'll pump her up as like, okay, absolute worst case scenario, if Kamala fails and Biden fails, okay, fine, we'll accept this, but don't you dare go any further left than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And actually, that's slightly unfair to her because I do think in some ways she has a decent track record, like on Wall Street and regulation. But yeah, it's a last resort.
See, I feel like her track record is like, I feel like most of her histories are like as being at least a little progressive in some areas is like tall tales, right? So yeah, she gets on to the stage or on to relatively or liberal panels, like the one where she was supposed to hold Wall Street accountable in 2012, I believe it was. But then like she didn't hold anybody accountable. She yelled at them and she wagged her finger. And back then, as I'm sure you remember, yelling at people and wagging your finger was sufficient enough for the people in public to believe that you were on the side of the people. But like my issues come, for example, like the CFPB was going through this huge debacle with racism within the company, even though its job was to hold people accountable for racism outside the company, amongst other things. But that was one of their main jobs, to reduce racially disparate practices amongst loan companies. So this was brought to her attention and somebody else's attention. The guy who was in charge of it, actually, I want to say he's the governor of Ohio now. Or he lost. He was the one that
governor of Ohio.
No, he's the one who ran. He was the one who ran the primary against Dennis Kucinich. I cannot remember his name. So he ran against Dennis Kucinich. All this stuff was going on. Basically, Obama, she was supposed to be the head of the CFPB. Obama took it away from her because too many Republicans wouldn't have liked her. That's what he said, and gave it to this guy. And the dude did okay, but he's an establishment neoliberal. And of course, in another politically calculating move, what did Warren or who did she endorse against Dennis Kucinich in the 2018 or I think it was 2017, 2018 elections? It was the establishment candidate against Kucinich, right? So it seems like even if she's an okay person, like I don't think she's an evil person inherently, but I do see that she is politically calculating, and she's definitely career driven, and that in and of itself is extremely problematic for the progressive movement because once again, I think that one, we don't pay enough attention to foreign policy, and this is the one who said we need to transition or phase out Maduro. She said that about Assad. Yeah. And we all know that's attempts to manufacture consent for regime change. She said that there was what does she call it? A demographic reality that Israel is dealing with, referring to too many Palestinian babies being born in Israel, right? So like, and this has been an ongoing pattern of basically she's just abysmal in foreign policy, and she's actually, according to I think it was Politico back in the day, a couple of years ago before she knew she was running, it said she was one of the least productive legislators. And then not just like getting stuff passed, but never getting it introduced to begin with, which is why I always said when she's like, oh, I got a plan. That's great. Where the hell were all these plans over the last 5 or 6 years? Because I don't got to wonder what Bernie's plan would be for Medicare for all. It may be a different variation, but he's already introduced it or tried to. Tulsi's, whenever like, well, how do we know she stands like this, that she stands here on foreign policy? Well, she introduced the No More Presidential Wars Act 2-3 years ago. She introduced Stop Arming Terrorists Act 2-3 years ago. The Off Act with climate change 2-3 years ago. And most of the time, good bills that are for the benefit of the people have to be introduced 2 or 3 times because that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But you want to have some type of skeleton. But it seems like Elizabeth Warren hasn't done anything, and then it's time to run for president. All of a sudden, I have all these ideas. And so when you combine that with the fact that just right after the debate, like I said, they were like, well, Warren. I'm like, hold on, we didn't see the same debate. She did okay. If I was a nonpartisan viewer who wasn't a political junkie, I would say, okay, she did really well, but still, she was way behind Bernie. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that was my analysis was that Bernie definitely won. I do think she had a good night, and I mean, she's definitely doing better than my original reading on her is she's kind of like super awkward, and she is the type of person to just like wander into a minefield where Trump just like destroys her 24/7 with the whole Pocahontas thing and whatnot. So that was my original reading on her. She's definitely outperforming from that view I had of her, no doubt. But again, I think the reason why the media would say, oh my God, she definitely won, she did better than everybody, the reason they would say that is that it is that kind of fail-safe move where, and we've seen articles to this effect, this idea of like, oh, is Elizabeth Warren stealing Bernie Sanders' progressive thunder? And it's like, well, no, because Bernie Sanders supporters actually really know a lot of details in and out about Elizabeth Warren, and there are certain things that just rub them the wrong way that are policy reasons. Like I'm sure you've seen the tweets where people say something like, oh, the only reason somebody would support Bernie over Elizabeth Warren at this point is misogyny, because they say, what? They try to say like, no, they're the same candidate, but she's a woman and he's a man. Therefore, if you support him, it's misogynistic. And obviously that's nonsense. Listen, the things about her. So here are the criticisms on her that I think are totally legitimate. One of them is obviously on Medicare for all. You could argue she's there in agreement, but the idea that she would push for it or fight for it as strong as Bernie would, I think is total nonsense, because she has said repeatedly, and she did it in an interview on TYT, she told them, like, oh,
there are many paths to Medicare for all.
The core of where all the Democrats are is the same. That's the argument she made. She was like, whether you're trying to get a public option, whether you're trying to expand Obamacare, whether you're trying to do Medicare for all plus Medicare for all extra, Medicare for all who want it, Medicare, whatever you're trying to do, the core is the same, and the core is we all want universal health care. So that's one of the red flags where it's like, okay, well, you're not really going to push for it, because if you think they're all equal, then you're going to accept whatever the minimum thing is. So you're not actually going to like crack skulls. So that's a criticism that's totally legitimate. I think that she's not there yet. She wouldn't fight for Medicare for all in a strong way. Obviously, the other criticism is on foreign policy, which you pointed out, which is, she has a giant blind spot, and she's just a standard Democrat on foreign policy, where, she had voted for the grotesque bloated military budget, which is basically inexcusable because everybody agrees Donald Trump is a lunatic and a maniac. And then what, you're going to vote to give him a multi-billion-dollar increase, $100 billion increase or whatever it was to his military spending? That's insane. And then the other criticism, which is obviously legitimate, is the Machiavellian criticism, which is why, she didn't endorse Bernie in 2016. The best possible this is the best possible reading of not endorsing Bernie in 2016. It's the idea that I, Elizabeth Warren, am so convinced that Bernie has no shot and Hillary Clinton's going to win, and I want to influence Hillary Clinton in a more left-wing direction. Therefore, I'm going to sit out of it and endorse her later on. That's the best possible view of it. The worst possible view of it is I'm going to play politics here and try to get my own career ahead. And I covered this on my show a few weeks ago. They had vetted her to be VP. Now, here's my little conspiracy on that, though. My little conspiracy on that pretend, and then when you get into office, you use that bully pulpit in a way where you don't give them a choice. You say, hey, listen, this is what you're going to do. And if you don't do it, sorry, but you ain't winning re-election.
Yep, because Bernie is the type of dude that will literally campaign in your state. That is what, and it would be successful. I could legitimately see him getting away. Because the thing that wins Senate races, which is why there's so few good senators, is money for the most part, except for in a place like Vermont. Because you can literally campaign that whole state in 2 months and then go back and do your rounds again. And so Alaska with Gravel, same thing back in the day. But if the president is coming around a corner and saying, this is the candidate that I want, best believe that candidate is going to raise the money. That type of president. So that is the good thing about that. And I do believe having allies in the House to introduce popular bills would be great for him. I just don't want a situation, because this is something that scares me about the current Medicare for All bill in the Senate. I'm sure you've done enough research to know that the Jayapal's bill is better, right? Shorter transitional period, leaves less room for private insurance to get involved, doesn't include a Medicaid portion of it, which would give too much power to the states in situations like long-term care services and things like that. But with Bernie not being there, right? So if Jayapal's bill gets introduced and then the Senate's bill gets introduced, they can both get passed. But then if they're not identical, it has to go to committee. Then they have to agree on something, and then that's the one that'll get voted on in the Senate, and then Bernie would sign it. The problem is Bernie can't be there for the legislative process, and so the people who are going to be sitting in that room are the lobbyists. In my humble opinion, that's what I think will happen. I think because that's what ACA was supposed to be a public option at first, and then what happened? Obama's talking on the camera like this is what it's going to be, and the way he was talking, I genuinely felt he thought it was going to be that. Because why the hell would you put out that trash at the end of the day, right? He wasn't expecting so much power to be turned over to the states through Medicaid, and then of course what the Republicans do, reduce Medicaid across the board. He wasn't expecting. I don't think he was expecting the mandate to be what it turned out to be. I think a lot of the problem, and then the Republicans went out of their way. They're like, okay, now that so now that the power's in the states and the states run Medicaid, we'll reduce the Medicaid amount going to the states, so they're limited. And then we can claim that ACA is a failure without going into the details of the fact that a lot of it's our fault that ACA is a failure, because ACA could actually be better. So I'm worried that same thing may happen to Bernie. Because even though there is a private option in his legislation, which is I'm okay with in practice and in theory, practically speaking, because we haven't gotten big money out of politics yet, that could be a very bad thing whenever we're talking about the negotiating process at the committee level. What do you think about that?
I think that you're right, and I think we're in trouble because we need, in order to get something this big passed, you need a massive outside game and an inside game. And we don't have either. We're getting closer with somebody like Bernie. We're getting closer to having that outside game because at least he gets that. At least he's even said yeah, I'll go campaign against them in their state. I don't care. I'll go do that. I'll go use the bully pulpit. I'll go put pressure on them. So he's getting it on that front. And so that would be a massive step in the right direction. But yeah, you also need an inside game. You also need hey, listen, here's the specific strategy. Here's what they're going to do. Here's how we're going to counter it. Here's how we're going to make sure that worst case scenario, we get this. And I'm telling you, man, I don't think they got anything figured out like that. Because you talk to even the best. You go talk to the best Congress people, the best senators, and you're like, all right, what's your plan? They're like, plan? What about a plan?
That's what I like about Tulsi. Tulsi put her Stop Arming Terrorism Act and then No More Presidential Wars Act, which could hold Trump to impeachment if he did any type of military action without congressional vote. You know what she did? She included it as an amendment in the NDAA, knowing it was guaranteed to pass. So it was underhand. And guess what she did when it was time to vote on it on the NDA? She said present, didn't even put her name or vote on it, but she knew it was going to pass. But that's the kind of planning you have to have in situations like that. You have to kind of use the situation to your advantage. But in the Senate, it's just so difficult to the point where I can't even fault Bernie for it necessarily. It's just the nature of the beast in the Senate. And that's why I think it's so important to stack the House with as many progressives as possible, because in some cases, you can beat the Senate. You can overcome the Senate in some cases with the 2/3 majority. But the problem is, once again, you have to have the personnel in there, which is where I think Bernie, the presiding officer, if you will, comes into play. But I do think it's problematic because I feel like we haven't been talking about big money in politics enough this election cycle.
That's actually a great point, and a lot of people feel like that because, yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, it is that one issue that impacts all other issues, and it actually seems to be the one issue where there isn't as much of a rallying cry right now. Like, we know there's a big rallying cry on Medicare for all. Even free college is now getting its day in the sun where everybody's talking about that. Well, ending wars, Tulsi has put that front and center. Bernie has definitely moved further left on that and spoken about it more this time than he did in 2016. So, like, everything else is kind of getting its day in the sun. But yeah, that one issue, which is like the most important issue and actually requires the most organizing and the hardest path to victory, that's getting like no conversation whatsoever. So in a worst case scenario, I hate to sound so nihilistic, but even if you get President Bernie Sanders or whatever, it's like, okay, how much can he actually do? Like, what is he actually going to do? What I would say is get that executive order pen ready.
Get that pen, boy.
Yeah, you better just do whatever, and then if they're coming after you, just be like, okay, sue me. Let's see who wins this. But for the next 3.5 years, when it's in court, we're gonna have this be the law. And then when you try to take it away from people, they'll be like, what the fuck? I enjoyed this. What are you talking about? Who took this away? That's the same thing. It's like with Social Security. How Republicans always like, we're gonna cut your Social Security, and it's like they can't even do that because if they were to do that, that's one of the few things where everybody would be like, nah.
Hell no, exactly. Yeah. And I will say this. There are other mechanisms that Bernie can use, like you just said, because Trump uses his advantage with the Muslim travel ban. Who gets to put the federal judges in? Who gets to put the U.S. attorney?
See, that's the big stuff that people don't even think about when it comes to electing a president.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. So with the HR 426 legislation, the thing that people did not think about was at the state level, there were open cases on people about to be prosecuted over their anti-BDS rhetoric or whatever. And the thing, I didn't like the bill because I do feel like it painted a disingenuous picture of BDS. I like the fact that they talked about Palestinian sovereignty, which is not a normal thing that they do in resolutions in America anyway. And of course, I love the fact that it asserted the free speech because it's basically saying, we don't like what you're doing, but we can't do shit about it. So whatever, it is what it is.
You're talking about the recent BDS bill?
So the recent BDS resolution, which is the HR 246, and then there was a bill that was HR 1837 that was actually the one that killed BDS, but they didn't actually say BDS in the legislation. Nobody's name, no presidential candidate's name was attached to it, and therefore it didn't get a lot of coverage. So for the 246 resolution, that would be used now as precedence at the state level to say a federal court cannot prosecute over anti-BDS anything because it said in that resolution, hey, you're entitled to free speech. We don't like it. We don't like
condemn BDS, so it was so weaselly.
It was weaselly. It was definitely weaselly. I didn't like it. In fact, my biggest problem with Tulsi is I'm like, that was a trap. And I think that you should have abstained from it. But I understand from her perspective because she endorsed Ilhan's bill as well. Now, the reason she endorsed Ilhan's bills for the same reason she endorsed this bill which was our resolution, which was because she is such a firm believer in free speech and she doesn't believe anybody should be prosecuted over exercising free speech against this country or a foreign power either. And so that co-sponsorship gave me a little bit of context to it, but also people did not realize, which I know just because I understand how Congress works. Congress don't like Ilhan, and they know Israel doesn't like Ilhan, so that bill is never going to see the floor. So understanding that, she was like, well, I have to vote on something that ensures and enshrines free speech, specifically contextualized around BDS, because right now it's federal courts who have judges and U.S. attorneys that are appointed by the Trump administration deciding on Israel shit.
Yeah, but I read the resolution too, and it was like the whole point of it was like we're condemning BDS, and they link it to anti-Semitism, and then they talk about how, oh yeah, and by the way, just so you know, this is totally like legally non-binding, and that we can't do anything against it because we have free speech in this country. So it's a way for, it's like Ro Khanna did the same thing, and I was like, you're just trying to have your cake and eat it too.
Weird though.
What's that?
But his reason for voting for it was weird. He was like, I just don't think this is the right thing to do, basically. But it wasn't about the free speech component. But in
No, he
Tulsi's
brought that up
response
because
video,
people were going after him, and they were like, "What are you doing, man? Like, this condemns BDS. Like, why would you do that?" And then he was like, "It's not anti-free speech." And then he would link to the portion of the resolution that was like talking about
which
how free speech is good. It's like, yeah, we know
yeah.
free speech is good. We know it's rule of law. We know that we have the First Amendment in this country. That was already the case. To pass another resolution to say, oh, by the way, we believe in free speech, but kind of fuck BDS. It's like, stop. Just what are you doing?
Yeah. They shouldn't have voted for it. They shouldn't have voted for it. Here's my issue as far as the coverage that the resolutions got. So, which the second bill that actually killed BDS, which was HR 1837, was done by a voice vote. And why was that? Because it was like literally 270 plus Congress members co-sponsored that shit. And what did it do? It effectively killed BDS without ever saying a word by giving literally unlimited funding to Israel, which is like, okay, so like if BDS is targeting the technology industry and the bill says, just ask for more money and we'll give it to you, what happens? BDS is ineffective. So my thing was, well, why didn't that get more coverage? Because the media, in my humble opinion, uses certain buzzwords in order to get people emotionally riled up. And they use the fact that certain names are attached to it, presidential campaigns, names attached to certain presidential campaigns, popular progressives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like they do it with AOC at times when they're trying to get attention to something that Trump did and she didn't vote for it. They'll throw her name out there so people will click on the article, which is fine. But the problem is, it's when that situation usually occurs, and I'm sure you would agree with me, there's something bigger going on because that resolution didn't do shit. Right? I think we can agree it condemned BDS, but it didn't do anything.
Which is another reason why it's dumb. It's like passing like hey, by the way, don't boycott like racist ass apartheid South Africa. Like, imagine passing a resolution, and they would do that. It is something like Ronald Reagan and the Republicans would have done. Did that. And it's like, it's extra asinine for that reason. It's like, oh, this doesn't even do anything, but we're just going to say cosign on the racist shit going on over here. And it's like, that's by the way, this 100% is going to be used simply for the reason to say Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, who voted against it, they're going to say they're anti-Semites as a result of that. And now, obviously, with what Netanyahu's doing, where he's like, banning them from coming to Israel, it's like, this is like next level. I mean, Obama, as the first black president, Obama got, he dealt with like, oh, you're born in Kenya, oh, you're Muslim or whatever. Like, there were accusations against him.
Super weird conflation.
They're taking it to a new level.
Yeah, it was that conflation off rip was super weird, right? Well, you're from Kenya. That must mean you're Muslim because your name is Obama also. It's like, wow, that's a lot of things going on there. Black people were personally confused. I think they were maybe claiming because he's maybe the Nation of Islam is most type of Muslim. I don't know. But with the Ilhan, it's scary. It really is. I fear for her life regularly.
100%. With Trump tweeting the shit like, oh, she agrees with 9/11 and whatever. It's like, do you understand what you're doing right now? Like, do you understand it? Or like, is that the point? Is the point to put her in danger? Or is it like you're just so stupid and you don't get that you're putting her life in danger?
He's a bully. Like, he's a punk. He would never say anything like that to Ilhan's face. He wouldn't. And that's why I talk when people try to defend Trump, like, they're like, oh, well, I think that he has the interests of the American people at heart. I'm like, no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He's a punk ass. He's not a fighter. There's nothing real about him. He's a bully, and he can only talk when he perceives himself as having the advantage in some way, form, or fashion. And you know what bullies also do? They also make themselves the victims all the time.
100%.
And that's literally what he does.
That's the whole. Actually, it's funny because that, like, people on the far right always accuse lefties of like having that victim mentality. But then if you really look at it, that's their whole game, is to have the victim mentality. I mean, look at, like, I'm sure you saw the thing in the news about, like, in Portland the other day where it was like Antifa versus Proud Boys and whatnot. And I got kind of dunked on a little bit on Twitter because I said, I think that, like, if you're a grown-ass man and you're going to a rally dressed in a costume, you're being silly, like, you're being ridiculous. And people were, like, hitting me with, like, with your false equivalence, bro, trying to say Antifa is the same as Proud Boys. I'm like, well, first of all, I didn't say that. They are obviously substantively different. Yeah. But, the victim thing. So, but, like, it's funny because that's the whole game, is, like, for the Proud Boys to go there and be like, we're such victims, bro. Like, you guys are all biased against us.
We should have a conversation. Free market of ideas. Yeah, right. Like with skinhead and white power tatted on you. Okay, yeah, I'm sure that you came there to like what. And my thing is, these are the same people. It's like Alex Jones, right? Alex Jones actually. I have to be honest. Alex Jones did not play victim as much as a lot of these like Ben Shapiro's and Steven Crowders. I must admit, he was like, but they'll always say, well, if you do this, then we're gonna do this, and the left is a bunch of pansies, and the left is a bunch of this and that, and then I'm like, okay, so whenever you go, if you're a Proud Boy and they were talking all this shit online, then they get in front of Antifa, which, to be honest with you, bro, it's like a bunch of skinny white guys who have nothing else better to do, like. And then
people are gonna come after you for that, but you're right.
Yeah, I mean, it's true though. It's true. Like, it is what it is. People, I mean, we ain't got a lot of time to be out here fighting for a country that ain't really out here fighting for us. I mean, you saw what just happened with Eric Garner. Like, it's the truth of the matter. But at the end of the day, the Proud Boys will instigate and say, I'm not touching you,
and then play the victim.
Touching you. And then when somebody snaps on them, oh my God, I was being super tolerant, except for the fact that I'm here because of my complete and total intolerance of everyone who doesn't look like me.
And not only that, but like there was the big one that blew up. The big moment that blew up was one of these Proud Boys or whatever had a hammer, and they were trying to swing it at one of the Antifa guys, and then the Antifa guy took it and started swinging back, and that guy Andy NGO, I don't know how to say
it. Andy Ngo,
yeah. Whatever the hell his name is. He tweeted it and cut out the part where the far right guy had the hammer, and then it was the lefty who took it and started using it back, and they tried to make it seem like, oh my God, it's only the left who's so violent. It's like, well, hold on now. You guys were just talking about weeks ago that the left was getting so violent because why? Because they were throwing milkshakes on people. Now listen, I'm not in favor of throwing milkshakes on people. Don't get it twisted. However, if we're going to compare and contrast violence here, one side is throwing milkshakes and the other side is fucking going to mosques and murdering people.
Yeah, or walking around with tiki torches and shit. Like, bro, so my thing is, what are you exactly going into? Like, if you're a Proud Boy or whatever, what are you marching about? Nobody's telling you can't be a guy. Like, you still run shit if you're a white dude. It's almost, in my opinion, and this is just, once again, this is my personal opinion from my life experiences. These are a bunch of people who have kind of lost themselves in this advancing society because they don't have the skill sets that transfer into modernization, into automation and things like that. And their culture is dying. They would rather point fingers and blame these immigrants, these females, people who are fighting for these people to have equity of opportunity, than just say, you know what? Maybe I should just take my ass back to community college and get another skill. It has to be someone else's fault. And once again, this is a bully mentality, and it's definitely mentality. This is what white privilege looked like when you are so privileged that anyone else, somebody else got that promotion over you. Oh, it's because he's black.
Yeah, that default assumption. That's gotta be it.
Ain't nobody got a promotion because they're black, bro. I'm telling you, this never happened. Like, that will stop you from getting a promotion before it ever gets you one, because promotions, once you get to a certain level, are about who you know and who you hang out with after work, not about what you do at work.
Nepotism is huge.
Exactly. And so it's insecurity and people not knowing how to direct it. And
it's interesting because it does kind of get back to the whole original conversation of like, well, why was Trump elected? And the answer is that it's actually really complicated, and it depends on who we're talking about, who was the Trump voter. Like, obviously, when we're talking about Richard Spencer, that dude just voted for Trump because he was like, Trump is racist as fuck, and I'm racist as fuck, and that's my ideology, so I like him, so I'm going to vote for him for that reason. So there are plenty of people who are like that, who are what I call too far gones, TFGs. But then there's also plenty of people who were, the 2 times Obama voter, and their life didn't get better, and then they voted for Trump because they thought, like, hey, maybe my dilapidated factory town will improve because this guy says he's going to bring all the jobs back here. So it's like, it's a mixed picture. And then with some people, it's kind of a little bit of both. It is a little bit of that dynamic that you were talking about, where it could be like an older white dude who feels like he's losing status and like, oh my God, minorities are just getting handouts all over the place. So he's got that racial resentment. But then it is also tied into the genuine pain of not having any marketable skill anymore and not being able to get a job. He's blaming the wrong people, but the pain is real of not being able to get that job. So it's like, it's a complicated
in our education system
end up like this.
our education system is another huge part of that, right? Our medic in my and also the medic the or lack thereof, I should say, of our medical access. I think that we're going through a very trying time in our history. I think older people, especially. So you and I were very fortunate. We were here when there was like damn near no technology, like nothing that made life legitimately super easy, right? I was born with eight. Oh my God, I don't forget what they're called now. 8 tracks. 8 tracks were still a thing whenever we were born.
What year were you born? I was 88.
88, Dragon year. Yeah. So like we got to see we couldn't do nothing, and then I remember not being able to text on the cell phone because my mom blessed 10 sets of text.
I remember those too.
You know,
one time my phone bill was so high, dude.
Woo! Man, I don't want to talk about that. I got flashbacks. Mama, no, it was my girlfriend, yo. I was in love. Okay. I was 13 and in love. Everybody should love like that at 13. But we also we noticed like before technology, and we also noticed like when technology has made our lives incredibly easy. And as adults, we know how to utilize it, but it won't cripple us if we don't have the technology with us as well. So we're pretty resourceful either way. But some people, technology being considered can screw their lives, and they have families, and they're getting fired early, and they're getting paid less, and they're being paid at at the low wage because somebody younger can come in and do the job even cheaper and be happy that they're even getting paid that much. And they don't really know how to deal with that. And I think therapy can help deal with that. Access to college without going into more debt could help deal with that. A lot of these issues can turn a Trump voter to a Bernie supporter or a Tulsi supporter. Like that's how, because they're addressing the reasons. How do we even get to the point where you just hate this Mexican so much? Why is it Mexicans that you dislike? Why isn't it an Eastern European from Russia, which New York is filled with, right? How many Eastern Europeans do you know that are undocumented and no one even blinks twice when they walk by? When they get pulled over, they don't say, where are your papers at? Why aren't you mad at them? Because they're starting businesses out here, okay? I don't really know how that shit even works, to be honest with you, because I've legitimately seen businesses started with undocumented people. But that's the reality. And the Mexican comes and does the same thing in like California or Arizona. And it's like, we have to put a border there or we have to build a wall there. And he's like, and then Trump feeds into that because he sees it. And he feeds into that. And I think I think that if we dealt with a lot of systemic issues, that that
would drop. I mean, history has kind of proven that, right? That like when times are really well for everybody, you do have bigotry and xenophobia reduce massively. It's never going to totally go away, but you can definitely reduce it massively by having, a material situation that's good for people. And the thing is, you're right, like we have a system that like you need to force yourself to fit into. It's not like the system exists and the whole point of the system is to accommodate the people. Like you look at this giant system and you're like, I got to try to force my way into it to make my way in this world. It's not like, and that's the thing that's appealing about a left-wing ideology that actually fights for people is like, okay, but what we're going to do is we're going to remake this system so that it does accommodate you. So that like you're not trying to force yourself into the system to make it work. The system is there to facilitate you and accommodate you and give you a chance. And like I'll always say, we will have made it as a society when somebody doesn't do well and everybody's kind of comfortable being like, that's on you, dog.
Yeah, rather than just telling themselves that as a defense mechanism, because they don't want to face the possibility that maybe I didn't get here because of my own merit. Maybe I got lucky as hell along the way that somebody took the time and invested in me, and then the right opportunities fell into my lap because somebody took the time to invest in me, or because of this club full of successful white guys who got a lot of their money and success because of generational wealth in their family, because they could take that loan out from grandma or grandpa and they never had to worry about being homeless, or because I'm a man and they believe that I'm more capable than this woman of doing this job. Like those are things that anytime I get an opportunity, for example, even in the YouTube sphere, that there's not a lot of black progressive YouTubers that are super popular, but I know that the reason I'm popular a lot of the time, I'm young, but also I'm a lighter skinned guy. Right. I was fortunate enough to go to UNC as well. And I did debate growing up because literally it took one guy Took me, I was going to do forensics. I was supposed to do acting. And he was like, no, you're going to do debate instead. I was like, I don't want to do debate. You're out of your mind. And he was like, we're going to do it anyway. I don't care. You're going to fail my speech class. I was like, what the fuck? But look what it led to. I knew how to speak better. I knew I never got denied from a job interview. And those are all advantages that I got that came from one thing and one thing only, which is one, being born a little bit fair skinned, and two, some white guy who had generational wealth and successful in a PhD and knew how to get somebody to that position, took me and put me in it. And I took advantage of it from there.
Somebody believed in you and then nurtured that in you, where he said, this is a thing that you're going to do and you can do. And that's the whole thing, is we want a system that sees that worth in everybody, that says, like, listen, don't worry, you're never going to go bankrupt because you got medical bills. That's just not going to happen. We're going to take that off the table. That's not an option. We're going to make it so that if you want to go to college, you can go to college and it's going to be paid for. It's going to be taken care of. We're going to give you that opportunity. If you get a job in a certain industry, why not have like the right to a union where you know you're going to make a living wage and you're going to be okay if you do that? If people know that their society is there, that and the whole point of it is to accommodate them and facilitate their lives and make it so everybody's happy and healthy, well, then I feel like a lot of that stress and a lot of those negative emotions and a lot of that scapegoating, that does reduce massively, and that does make it so that we just live in a better situation.
Think about it from this perspective. How many times, and more so recently probably than ever before, like we've gotten better at our craft and we have more content. Right now, politics is really seeped into pop culture. Like there are times where I could probably do 8 to 10 videos in a day if my computer let me upload them fast enough. But now, because we're getting demonetized arbitrarily, once again, the system working against people trying to fight back against the system, now it's like, well, shit, I have to try and upload this one. May not be able to cover this topic because I don't have the energy and the time to do it so that it would be worth my time. So a fun topic that I would have normally done under other circumstances, now I won't be able to do something that I want to cover. I have to cover this instead because I know it won't get demonetized and I know it won't get hurt in the algorithms. See, that type of stuff, one thing leads to another. I don't even know how many people right now would otherwise, like, for example, Pasta and Fiorella just got clocked out on like 1.5 million views last month on YouTube. Guess what YouTube told them about monetization? No, we're not monetizing. That's hours and hours, and you know how that goes. Hours and hours and hours.
That's terrible, man. They're making it really stringent. That's really tough.
How many other people want to fight to do what we do and tell the truth? This is your form of activism through political commentary. And now they're like, do I even want to deal with that? So how many voices are we losing because of that? You know what I'm saying? Like, it has a reverberating effect. Whether we're talking about this, whether we're talking about the person who avoids going to the doctor because they're worried about the bill, so that they get sicker. And now all they're worried about is them being sick at work, or their daughter being sick at work, or their son being sick. Like it all has an effect, and it's a negative one. And it's just not good for our society. Our society is not. We can crumble. People think that we're invincible, and I do think that. And Sophia did a great job covering the Hong Kong riot. The Hong Kong protests, basically saying like America has a lot to do with it because of our issues with mainland China right now. So we're trying to make it seem like, oh, they're having a death grip over Hong Kong. But what China's a if we have they're like 1/3 of our economy, or 1/3 of theirs, excuse me. But it's symbiotic, because 1/3 of their economy, we pull out, they're done. But the thing is, that's a huge chunk of our economy too. So they pull out completely, we're done. But we have way more to lose, right? Across the world, we have way more to lose. And we're not that far from losing it. And I think people are truly underestimating that.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that's why you've seen the rise of these like far right populists who really are fake populists, but they're using that bigotry and xenophobia and trying to scapegoat and say, hey, all these problems that have been brought about by a disastrous neoliberal world order, that just blame these, the immigrants, blame the refugees, blame all these poor black and brown people. And that's why you, Mr. Lower Middle Class white person, that's why you're suffering as you're suffering. And like, if you don't have a very convincing answer from the left, then people do unfortunately turn to those far right populists who are fake populists. So
like Charlie Kirk, really, little bitch ass.
That's the option. The option is, are we going to go populist left or fake populist right? There's no other answer there. It's like you need to have somebody who's going to create a system and fix the system to actually help the people.
Yep. Charlie Kirk tweeted out something one time. It infuriated me. I was like, bro, there's no way you can be this stupid on accident, which we know he's not. He's paid to be that stupid. But he basically tweeted something that wages go down X% the more immigrants have been let into this country, or undocumented immigrants have populated the country. Like, and he tried to basically insinuate that correlation is causation in that regard. I'm like, bro, that's so disingenuous. Yeah. Like, you know for a fact wages have gone down significantly for the last 30 years, no matter what's happening.
And yet profits have gone up. The income of the top 1% is through the roof. Why is he not making that much more direct connection?
Yes, of course, because he's paid not too long as he's fine. He's all good. And apparently, the thing about Charlie Kirk is, for those of you who don't know, I can't verify this, but one of his peoples that doesn't work there anymore. I ain't gonna say the name, but I got a little close to her because she's gets on my nerves sometimes. But she used to be part of that organization before she left amicably. But Charlie Kirk basically started that organization because he got rejected from a school, and he blamed a minority for that rejection, and like threw a hissy fit, which seems fitting, right? But that's exactly how he got. That's why you notice it's like he has this big gripe against universities, like, and that's why, because he didn't have the grades.
He thought that he got hit with like a reverse racism thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
And that's where like all the TPUSA started, and that's why they started targeting college campuses specifically. It's him taking out like his more like his anger on the universities that he felt did him wrong, and it was because of these. And then he, of course, what does he always do? It's obvious. What does he do? He gets tokens to speak out against their own race or own ethnicity. It's like literally what he's done. And a lot of those people.
That's Candace Owens. That's her job. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you saw the thing me and her got into recently.
Oh, yeah. That was pretty pathetic. She took the bait, bro. I don't know. I'm like, bro, Kyle just baited her, and she really took it. I can't believe she took Okay, so I want to hold you to 2 minutes. I want to ask two fan questions, or 3 fan questions really quick, and then we'll go on. I'm going to start with the hard one. And this is a good question now. It's about Bernie. They said, what do you think of Bernie's foreign policy up until this point, and do you feel like it's fair to say he has been consistent on his voting record when he's done things like he voted to bomb Kosovo, and then he obviously Israel, but everybody was bad on Israel. And then he voted for the Iraq War the first time, even though he didn't vote for it the second time, and he did vote for the war in Afghanistan, even though he doesn't talk about it. So they want to know, do you think it's fair to call him consistent, even though his foreign policy record doesn't match up to that?
Well, I mean, listen, is he as non-interventionist as me? No. But then again, I don't know if anybody is in Washington, D.C. And I mean that. Like, I'm a very tried and true non-interventionist. Maybe you could argue, like, maybe Ron Paul was a little closer to my position when he was there on foreign policy. So, no, he's not perfect. But is he the best that we have? I would say, yeah. I mean, you could obviously also
in
make
the Senate, definitely. In the Senate, definitely.
An argument for Ro Khanna, who actually has a surprisingly awesome foreign policy. Like, one of the things, he's actually very much like Tulsi in that in his mind, I think he puts that front and center. He cares about that more than or above other issues, I think. But yeah, am I too bothered by like 3 or 4 votes that weren't in the direction I wanted them to go? Not really, because I feel like with the totality of what he's probably cast over 100 different foreign policy votes, and he is against my position on 4 or 5. I could live with it. I mean, like on the Afghanistan one, I actually think that was a tough question because even at me, and I'm a tried and true non-interventionist. When we were attacked on 9/11, the idea of trying to go get bin Laden, that's not crazy at all. Like, but now listen, I think we should follow all the proper procedures. Like, we should obviously, it should be approved in Congress, it should be approved in the Senate, it should be done in a surgical way, 100%. But going after bin Laden is not a crazy idea, and that was the idea behind the Afghanistan war. is to go after Al Qaeda. So like that doesn't bother me too much. But I do respect the fact that this person is willing to criticize even our best. Like that's respectable. Like you don't have to bite your tongue. You can criticize across the board, even if we like these people, because that's the only way to make them better.
Yeah, and I would say, to give context to not just that, but I try to put myself in a position in the 90s and in the early 2000s, right? It's obviously we were young as shit, but even in the early 2000s, we didn't think that we had to completely disregard everything the intelligence community said back then. We did not know they damn near are anti-American to a degree. And Bernie being a little bit old school, he's not going to be like go into a situation thinking everything they tell me is full of shit. It's hard to convince, even now. You see him going a little bit further left on things like Venezuela and Syria, but even now it's hard for old daughter because he's not going on social media every day to see the same things that we're seeing. Tulsi is on social media every day. I know for a fact do you know where a lot of her views changed? YouTube. I promise you. She loves some Joe Rogan. She loves your show. She watched my show even when I had like 5-6. And then she took a little bit of information, bits and pieces of it, and did her own research, and then she grew from there. That's the millennial. That's the advantage of being a millennial in this particular situation. Yeah. Hell, I would even say Pete Buttigieg is good at manipulating that.
That's a good point. But like, yeah, you're right. Like, you got to get to the default setting of like, just assume up front that what you're hearing from the intelligence community is bullshit, and then work backwards from there. And for an old school person, like you were alluding to, that's not their first thought process. You and I grew up in the era of like being lied to by the intelligence agencies, so we know that that's the default.
Yep, war started while we was in middle school, and bro, I'm 30 now. That's crazy. Like literally the Iraq War and the war in Afghanistan started while we were in middle school, and there are kids now who are signing up to serve in those same exact wars.
That's right.
And a lot of people, I do think it's important. Like like you said, it's important to question him on that. And because we need him to know why those votes were wrong. Because otherwise, Bernie does not know unless there is an outcry. I think that's what's important about any and everybody. Tulsi as well. Tulsi, when she voted for HR 246, I don't think that she expected the backlash she got for that. I don't think she did. Or else I think she would have abstained probably. I thought she was just like, it's a resolution, whatever. I feel like I need to do this, because she also voted for Elon's vote, and nobody talked about that either. Or Elon's resolution, nobody was talking about that resolution either. So I'm pretty sure she thought it was just going to be one of those business as usual situations, and then look what happened. But now, she responded. She even did a response video, but that shows us, okay, clearly these politicians are paying attention to what we have to say. So if we try to put them in a cocoon, they'll never change. But if we are open and we confront them from a genuinely constructive perspective, because like some people just want to attack, and
they're not going to listen to you if you do that. If you're serious,
they pretend like they're critiquing in good faith by lobbing compliments and I like the way they did this, I like the way they did that, but I just have my concerns. My concern, boy, I can't stand the concern culture that everybody. So
hey, Niko, I could just do one more because I got Corin waiting next. I got to do Kyle and Corin soon.
My bad. So are you going to Politicon, and what are you looking forward to there? That's the last question.
Okay, I have no news on that yet, but I might soon. That's my answer on that front.
Okay. So you're looking to debate somebody?
So I will say this: if I go, I will 100% be debating somebody.
Okay, all right.
But the question is, who the hell wants to debate me? That's the thing.
Right, it seems like they all retired. All the Charlie Kirks and the Ben Shapiro, they're just ducking and dodging everybody. They're not responding. I'm like, bro, all this. I'm telling you, bro, the free marketplace of ideas, that thing be popping about 3 months, up until 3 months before Politicon, then the free marketplace of ideas, because this is why nobody wants to talk to the left, because they're so violent and they're so intolerant. It's like, bro, hold up, what happened to the free marketplace of debates? We just said we'll debate you. No, man, we don't want to talk to y'all. We just don't think it, like, bruh.
That's literally exactly how it goes. That's exactly how it goes. Like, bro, I'll debate anybody. You know what? I know what I'm doing here. I got this. Oh, really? This person's offering. I don't know, man. I don't know about all that.
He's gonna attack me, man. I just don't want to deal with it. Yeah, right. It's ridiculous. I'm trying to get into Politicon and debate somebody too. I'm actually trying to debate somebody on the left. I want to do some. I feel like we don't critique. Like we don't have like the right's kind of whatever. I don't really care about the right because a lot of the ones that would be at Politicon debating aren't even there debating in good faith. They're there debating what they're paid to debate. Whereas the left, we have we all basically agree on the same thing, basically, but we have different methods of getting there. And I think those debates could actually be constructive rather than
I mean,
ideology is right.
It depends how far you want to go. Like you could debate somebody who's nominally on the left who disagrees with you on everything, like Zerlina Maxwell, and that would just unravel quick.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing. I think that we should have more. Why doesn't so Joanne Reed debate like Kim Iverson or something to that extent? Or why doesn't Chris Hayes or not Chris Hayes? Oh yeah, Chris Hayes actually, that'd be a good one. Debate you like about X, Y, and Z, or about that we pulled this stance out of your video here. You know, he addresses on MSNBC here because we do a lot of critiquing of their content. And if they stand by what they say, why not? Because they're all there, right? They're at Politicon. So why aren't they asked? They're going to get paid to do it and come up and defend their point. I think that would be dope. And I think it would actually be constructive. But
yeah, they're not ready, man. They're really not ready. They don't want it. I bet they don't want that because it's a totally new kind of criticism for them. They're used to the Fox News like shrieking idiots. They're not used to like substantive criticism, you know?
That's true. It's very true.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming on, man. I guess you could let everybody know where to find you. I think everybody already knows where to find you, but go ahead and let them know anyway.
It's at Kyle Kulinski on Twitter and Secular Talk on YouTube. And thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Go if you have not yet, man. Go to Kyle's Patreon. Go donate. $1, $5. I'm sure he's appreciative of anything and everything. Hey, he's running a show, just like the rest of us. And I know he has millions of subscribers or hundreds of thousands of subscribers, but hey, demonetization works the same way for everybody. So it means not a lot of money for a lot of people. And so if you have not yet, go become a patron of Kyle Kulinski. Go to subscribe to his channel if you have not yet. Even if he disagrees or we disagree or y'all disagree, it's always educational and it's always constructive whenever he does a show. So I appreciate you coming on, my man. I appreciate you doing what you do.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Keep up the work. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, man.
All right.
And always remember, more than anything else, people, find your balance. Peace. Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Roku TV, and on JustNForm.com. Also, you can make sure that you're subscribed to the channel by going to the subscribe button, pressing it, and hitting that notification bell to get all of our notifications. And of course, you can help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon by supporting the show by donating as little as $1. You can click on the link in the description below for that. And remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.